And if the football's going through the uprights, that's pretty good for the offense. The rest maybe belong to the defense. I don't know. They're pretty good too. These are snap judgments. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. It is a good thing for the offense to end on a high note. Devon Brown to Bryson Rogers, and then a slam dunk celebration.
Yeah.
That was a pretty exciting play, and maybe the best play that the offense had all day.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of explosion from the offense. There were a couple other nice plays, I thought. I noticed like Sam Williams-Dixon getting loose for another long run. He did that a couple times on Thursday. Will Howard, I'm sure we'll talk about a couple nice throws. But yeah, it did feel like by and large they kind of belonged to the defense and maybe the secondary especially, which is not surprising that they still don't have pads on. Even when they're playing 11-on-11, it still kind of functions more like 7-on-7. But I thought the secondary definitely showed up in a major way with the exception of that last long touchdown to Bryson Rogers.
But even that one, they weren't in a bad position. That would just happen to be a spectacular throw.
Jalen McClain, I think, was feeling himself because he had a pretty good day. So then he went for the pick on that play
Instead
and
of
got
just knocking it away.
He should not have gone for the pick.
Yeah.
But, it's not a day where the offense was really tasked with doing a lot of that stuff down the field. It's really just figuring. And again, not to beat the dead horse, but when you have no idea what offensive line you're behind, or it's hard to get a real beat on the offense for me watching this. When you see Will Howard behind the second and third string offensive line, and then you see the first team defense against that group, I don't understand it, but whatever. Will Howard.
Thank God I'm not the only one saying that today.
Will Howard threw a couple extremely pretty passes. Julian Sain did the same.
Tell him about it. He's right there.
He's right here.
Well,
which was the throw to Travion the best one, or the one in the corner?
I like that one to Trey.
To Abeloff?
Devin.
The one to Trey was pretty sweet.
Okay.
That ball to Bryce.
If it was completed to Adolph.
Were you worried it was going to be? Because it was like, as soon as you threw it, I said, that's a beautiful ball. And then Jalen was this close to it. But
He knew.
His back is to me. He's open.
Back is to me. He's open.
There you go. Both those guys had something to feel very good about.
Yeah, and this is what you should have. These quarterbacks are all experienced at this point. They all feel pretty good about where they are, and they should. I mean, I think that the camera is extremely dark for some reason right now. I have no idea why that's happening. But the reality is that each of these quarterbacks is doing things pretty well. And I said it on this morning's daily, like, if you have a group of quarterbacks that are all playing well and that makes a decision difficult for the coaches, then that's a pretty good problem.
Well, let's talk more about those quarterbacks. Then we waited until the end of snap judgments on day one on Thursday, Bill. So what do you leave thinking about these quarterbacks on day two? Did you see some of the things that we talked about on the daily with consistency? I don't know, how do you take day two?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that it was like a definite build from day one to day two. Will Howard had what I thought were probably the two best throws we've seen from him in our practice availabilities going back to the spring, when he hit Travion Henderson on the wheel route, and then he threw another, I thought, more impressive throw to David Adolph, and David Adolph just kind of dropped in the end zone. Would have been a touchdown. It was funny too, like Will hit Travion on the wheel route, and like the first guy to go congratulate him was Lincoln Keenholz. Like they were all very excited to connect on a play like that. But Will put the ball in harm's way a couple times. It just was like late on a couple of throws that got knocked out of the air. I thought Devon Brown was like a little bit behind on a lot of throws, but then he ended it on a high note. I thought the guy that threw the best was Julian Sain. I sent it to I don't know if I sent it to our texters or not, but fearless is the word that like kept popping into my mind with the way that he's just willing to rifle that ball over the middle of the field. He had an incredible throw down the seam to Will Kasmerick that seemed like Will was kind of surprised that the ball got to him and it hit off his hands and it was incomplete, but then he came back in a later period on a different field and kind of a similar throw, but this one on the move and just like kind of stuck it between three defenders right in Will's chest, and Will caught it. But so I don't know. I thought it wasn't a bad day for the quarterbacks, but if you thought day one was like a good start for them and we're hoping to see a definite, like obvious build upon in day two, I don't think it was quite that.
I don't think it was a letdown from anyone.
No, it was just kind of the same.
It's what you expect. I mean, again, we're not out here in pads. The defense clearly is at an advantage in most of these situations. But I think what is interesting is that there's things that they all do well that the other maybe struggles with a little bit. Devon Brown, I think, throws the best deep ball of the group. But he's
the strongest arm.
But he's a little bit inconsistent in the intermediate stuff. Decision making. Julian Sain seems like he's got a faster processor than any of them.
Definitely.
He's also much more willing to check down and take things. And then, to your point, like the throw to Will Kasmerick, he had another one later. I can't remember who to. Maybe to one of the walk-ons, but where he just doesn't seem to like when he decides I'm going to.
Oh, the throw to Dorian Williams.
Yeah, when he decides he's going to rip it, like he can make every throw, and he looks physically so much better. Like Lincoln Keenholz, I think, is a guy that needs to be on the move a little bit. When he's in the pocket, he doesn't entirely look comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Noland is, maybe not seeing the field as well, but when he has a guy open, the ball is accurate as heck. I mean,
he's safe, I think.
Yeah, which is fine and understandable for a young guy. So they're all they all have different skill sets and all have different strengths, but the throws that will stick out to me today are the Will Howard throws, the Julian Sayin down the middle to Kaczmarek that got dropped, and then the Devon Brown one. So they all have, as you said, like they all had a moment or two today where you're like, that's it. And then they all had we saw Will Howard running a lap.
They all ran laps.
Because he dropped a snap. We saw Julian Sayin run a lap because he threw, into triple coverage. Like
I guess Devon Brown did run a lap. Oh, no, did he? Yeah, he did.
He did.
So I don't want to say ups and downs, but it's pretty much what we saw Thursday on Friday.
The part about Devon Brown with the deep balls is worth revisiting, I think, because he previously in practice, he also took another shot and really pushed it downfield. And it's easier because Jeremiah Smith is open no matter what the situation is. I'm not trying to discount that, but the most success that Devon Brown has had in these first 2 days are when he takes the shots downfield. And he seems, I think, more willing to take those chances than any of the other quarterbacks. But then the reason, and we've talked about this going back to last year, why did he not win the job? It is because of the inconsistency with the shorter stuff and then the intermediate. If that continues, we saw spring a step forward. If that continues, if he can grow in that regard, he becomes such a different weapon at quarterback.
Yeah. But we also saw him in the games last year. The two best throws he had all year were against Western Kentucky on a deep shot to Carnell Tate and at Purdue on a deep shot to Brandon Innes. Like that's what he does. And you wonder, for this style of offense with the run game that's going to be so heavy and so important, like just having a quarterback that is willing to take that shot, is that something you need? I mean, is that a valuable trait? Because I think back to the 2014 playoff run and Cardale Jones, and the difference between him and JT Barrett was when you have Cardale out there, you can take that shot. And for a team that is going to be run heavy, maybe you need to have someone that is more willing to get vertical.
I don't think Will Howard is unwilling.
I'm playing
to throw
devil's
the ball down the
advocate
field.
here,
He's just
all, but
I think both of them struggle with downfield accuracy. Devon Brown just has a stronger arm. Like he can throw it farther down the field than Will Howard can. I don't know that either one of them is necessarily a ball placement specialist when they're throwing it more than 25 yards down the field.
I suggested that Julian Sayin was a BPS today.
I think Julian Sayin is a BPS.
Julian Sayin is definitely the closest thing they have to a BPS out here. He's got probably just an issue of strength to get a little better with it down the field. But yeah, if you're 30 yards or closer to the line of scrimmage, he's going to put that thing where it needs to be.
If this is your first ever snap judgments, a BPS is a ball placement specialist.
Yeah.
Trademarked for CJ Stroud, the original and the OG BPS.
The OG BPS.
All right, is there more to add to the quarterback conversation because it's just day 2 and they didn't have pads on?
I don't think so.
I have one more thing on this. I think the thing that continues to stand out to me about Will Howard are like his subtle movements in the pocket. Like he is twitchier than you might realize for a guy that is his size, I suppose. But like when there's pressure, he's good about like just kind of like moving his shoulders, shuffling his feet quickly, and like resetting and throwing the ball. I think Julian Sayin will be good at that. I don't know if he's quite there yet. He's
been a couple reps where it has shown it.
I think the other three need to get better at that. And I actually that is a sort of overlooked quality, I think, in a quarterback. Just like how can you not run away from pressure, but just kind of reposition yourself. Dwayne Haskins was great at that. I think Will Howard's pretty good at it.
Yeah, and he's getting a lot of opportunities to do that because the offensive line they keep putting him behind is just making it a challenge.
What a great point.
Yeah.
Who was your day 2 MVP, Bill?
It's a good question. I might, despite the brain fart on the last play, I might go Jalen McClain.
That was my pick.
Yeah, he had I want at least 3 pass breakups that I saw. He might have had more than that. He just seems to have a really good understanding of, and I guess it's easier when you go against your own team all the time, but like of route concepts, like space and where guys are going to be and kind of how to drive on the ball and almost kind of bait quarterbacks into some decisions. So he seems pretty savvy for a kid who's only been here for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
So
the Jordan Fuller comparisons were apt.
Yeah.
I was thinking today during practice about how much time I'd spent thinking about the safety depth and like Malik Hartford has to be ready to go. And they're just a 1 or 2 breaks away from that being a bad situation, I feel pretty good about Ohio State's safety depth. That's just 2 days because maybe that's a product of Jalen McLean's 3 pass breakups, but if that's the case, so be it.
It's not just him. Jaden Bonsu looks like he's ready to play. I mean, Lee Hartford, if he's healthy, he's ready to play. And then obviously you have the 2 best, the best starting tandem in the country. So if you have 5-6 deep, that's not a problem. It's a problem for next year maybe.
Yeah.
But you'll see. Then you got to keep these guys. So MVP for me today would probably be Kelvin Simpson-Hunt. I thought he was another guy that was really, really active. I was surprised to hear Jim Knowles and his post-practice presser talk about being concerned about the depth at the nickel spot, because in my thought process in the last 2 days, I thought he should probably feel better about it.
Because, yeah, me too.
Because I watched Jermaine Matthews look really comfortable and good in that spot on Thursday, and Kelvin Simpson-Hunt do it today. And then
Miles Lockhart made a play or two.
Miles
as well.
Lockhart is there. Lorenzo Styles is coming back and getting healthy. So, I mean, now to me, you have 5 guys there. So I was surprised to hear him say that.
I think it must be. I don't know this for sure. I should have asked or maybe followed up on that he just doesn't want Jermaine Matthews to play in the nickel, that they would rather those guys stay at corner. That must be, that has to be the only reason he could not feel good about it, because clearly those guys are talented enough, athletic enough, physical enough, competitive enough.
And doggone it.
And tough.
People like them.
People like him to do that, but he must just not want them to. He must want them at corner.
I wonder, and this is just really parsing things down, but Ryan Day at the podium on Thursday mentioned Jermaine Matthews and said he really needs discipline in his life. Did you remember when he said that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, that was an odd thing to say. Knowing Jermaine, he is a free spirit for sure, and a guy that maybe is willing to freelance at times. So I thought maybe that's a piece of this puzzle, that they're maybe waiting to see him elevate, maturity level wise. But again, when you're talking about just talented depth, I think they have way more at nickel than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
I think today, day 2, Friday, was a step forward for the tight ends compared to, again, we had a ton of conversation about the depth and how it's going to look, who's going to play where. Now, they did have a few drops, notably the Will Kazmarek drop. That happened on Thursday as well. But they also have made a lot of plays, maybe more Friday than on Thursday. I'd have to go back and double check that. But Jelani Thurman has shown up as a receiving threat on both days. He had a long one that went for a tagged off, maybe should have been a touchdown, could have been a touchdown. G. Scott had one. Patrick Gerd was doing some stuff that was out in the flat and doing work as a target in the passing attack. They all had some opportunities to make plays there, and that's not going to be their bread and butter. That's not what Ohio State really needs. But I think I'd say through day 2, they have answered the challenge and at least made enough plays in this setting that you could feel better, or I would feel better for Ohio State tight ends than maybe I did coming into Thursday.
Yeah, they all I think showed a little bit of upside catching the ball. Even Bennett Christian has caught a couple in the flat and kind of turned upfield and looked explosive. So that was nice to see. They're going to put shoulder pads on Saturday and then keep ramping up the physicality. That's what I want to see from that group. I just want to make sure that they can block the way this offense needs them to. So yeah, in terms of one facet of their game, I do think they've showed up pretty well here these first 2 days.
If there's a job that this tight end group is going to have this year, it's going to be to improve over what the blocking was a year ago. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of conversation about the inefficiencies of the running game in the last couple of years, and a major part of that has been the inability to block the edge and to set 100%. The edge at tight end. So, some of that, Cade Stover obviously had a lot of health issues in the last year that maybe kept him from being what he was as in 2022 early in that year. So there's a reason that they went out and got Will Kazmarek. It's not because he caught 20 passes at Ohio. It's because he should be a big physical inline blocker. Jelani Thurman at 6'6", 260 pounds. Bennett Christian at 6'6", 260 pounds. These guys should be able to do that. So are they going to be physical is way more important than are they able to stretch the field in the vertical sense, because that's why you have Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Bryson Rogers and so on and so forth. So
there's more. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, we said it on Thursday, but I think Ohio State's walk-ons, wide receivers, could start at a lot of teams in the Big Ten.
Did we talk about Dorian? Yes, on after Thursday.
We brought him up.
We struggled to remember his name because it was the first time I had ever heard of him. But we did mention was committed to Vanderbilt, then decided to come to Ohio State. It was late in the process. I don't remember if it was on Snap Judgments or on the Daily, but we did bring him up, and you wrote about him in the diary yesterday as well.
Doesn't drop the ball. You throw the ball to him, he catches it.
Yeah, and he's not like a little small guy. Like he looks like a college football wide receiver.
He looks very good.
How do they keep doing it? Reese Stockdale also had a long touchdown.
That guy had like 10. Yeah. That guy had like 10 offers. So,
I know.
So did David Johnson, including Kentucky. So
he can go for sure. I thought Kojo Antwi had a good day on Friday as well. He might have dropped a pass or two, but made like maybe three or so contested catches that I thought were pretty impressive.
He started really strong. I mean, he was on the field where the scrambled up split squad was working with Will Howard, and they had, I think, the first two completions of the day were Will Howard to Kojo Antwi.
Kojo's a guy. There was a lot of discussion about the Jeremiah Smith and the 23.18 miles an hour or something, whatever it was this summer. And the day before that, Kojo Antwi had run faster than him. So, like, there's maybe a role here. We talk about special teams and kick returners. I wonder if there's a role there for Kojo somewhere to make a splash, because his name was brought up by Ryan Day, Jaden Ballard was brought up by Ryan Day. Like, those two guys are important, and if they don't find a role for them, then this year there's not a role for them ever. So, and Kojo, is a guy that a lot of people in that class of 2022 wide receiver group, he's the only one left. So you'd wonder if he's certainly willing to persevere. So now he's got an opportunity. He looked good though.
Well, that's day 2 in the books. There are still 2 more opportunities if you want to come out and watch Ohio State at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Tickets are still available. They have not sold out for either the first 2 days. So if you've been waiting and you want a nice little weekend opportunity, you can get that at the Woody and come watch the Buckeyes yourself. There's also going to be an open viewing period again on Saturday morning. So Berm will be here for sure. Bill?
I will be here Saturday, Sunday TBD.
Yeah, I will not be here on Saturday, but these guys will have it covered for you. So stay tuned for that on the podcast. He's Bill Landis. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. These are Snap Judgments. So long.